Hey y'all, welcome back to the Fact Chicks podcast, where Haley and I yap about all things media education, AI, misinformation, fake news, and all about building a startup. So Haley's going to kick it off today because we've had an insanely busy week, and I honestly don't know where to start. So
We've been posting on social media about what we've been doing. We've got a great response. We've had people message us, and we've had great feedback from the first episode of this. But Jenny has had a very, very busy week, and she's got some exciting news. What happened?
yeah, so last week, Haley and I were invited to go to 10 Downing Street, and it was the first kind of time that, or like opportunity that we had to talk about the Fact Studio and everything that we want to do with it, because we haven't really been public. We haven't really taken this into the outside world. It's kind of just been me, Haley, sitting at our desks and cranking out a bunch of foundational work during our free time. And so we were invited to talk about digital adoption in small businesses, and there were 11 other business owners, and it was insane. Like, we didn't know what to do. Like, both of us were very overstimulated when we got the news and the invite. But it was just it was Monday morning, so it was an insane way to kick off the week. And we just got really good feedback. I mean, it was an awesome discussion just around like what the government can do to support small businesses and business owners with digital adoption and technology and tools and AI. And I think one of the things that made, one of my main takeaways was that there's obviously a cost issue when it comes to AI and tools. I mean, Haley and I are trying to use a bunch of different things to progress our business strategy forward, but we've got a running spreadsheet on a Google Sheets about what costs what. Is it monthly? Is it yearly? And it's quite overwhelming, but so much technology can help people move their businesses forward and be more productive. But I also think there's a confidence issue. And I think that's something that Haley and I struggle with talking about sometimes is, there is a challenge and a risk that AI and technology does pose to misinformation and fake news in the way we interact with each other online. But then it also has the positives and how we can use it safely and for the mundane tasks that we don't need to do anymore, so we can focus on what is really good and productive. And so there is a bit of a confidence issue and a perception issue. And I think we need to figure out how to find the right balance of how to talk about AI and technology and what we can use it for and perhaps what we shouldn't use it for. But then again, Haley, we were just talking about AI in general and how it's such a muddled, muddy umbrella term that nobody really knows what they're talking about. It's kind of like the
Yeah,
internet. The internet is one thing, but there's
I
so
think
much on
it's
the
just
internet.
because it's just so new. Like, it really is, and the people at a really high level that I guess have control over these things, they don't know what this looks like either. So it is just a crazy kind of Wild West out there with AI. And yeah, like you said, it's a massive umbrella term for so much. And so when we say AI, like, we are generalizing it because there's so much good that you can use from it. We use it a lot. We're trying to set up our business. But yeah, I mean, when I think of AI, I think of the first thing that comes to mind when I think of AI is the videos on TikTok when I'm scrolling that you can tell are generated from AI. But it really is so much. I mean, I use it in news for transcripts for just press conferences, and that's super helpful. And that's AI. So yeah, it really is. It's hard to dissect everything that it is because we still don't even know what it looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I was also at an event last night about misinformation and fake news. And one of the things that said is we have entered, it is really new, but it's also old. So, like, we've all watched The Terminator, right? Like, that is AI generated content. But we are now in a time where we've reached such photorealism. So we can't really distinguish what is real and what is not real. And it's not about whether we can, it's just about I guess, transitioning our trust. And the issue with that is if we're seeing so much online and we don't know what's real anymore, and we question it all, we're also losing trust in the sources that we should be trusting. Because that's something we talked about previously as well, is we need to kind of almost like find a new trust for sources that we've been supposed to trust for the past however long that media has existed, and journalists and news. And so it's just like a really interesting time because fake news has been around forever and quite some time.
Yeah.
It's just at the speed in which we are consuming it and sharing it and perceiving it, that is new. Like, it is just everywhere all the time and anywhere. And I think that's just kind of what's scary.
Yeah, and it comes down to the fact there's not enough training and understanding for it. Even with just where I mean, we're focused on young people, but I think all ages need this training to see kind of just to seek how to be responsible and how to engage with it meaningfully and responsibly. Because it is. It's I mean, even journalists, people in positions that should be able to dissect this, still hard, and we don't even know what we're doing with it. So
And it's difficult because I guess at a consumer level, and we like it's human nature to want to consume content. Well, it is even more increasingly so to consume content that reaffirms our version of the story. And I think that's what we get into in terms of echo chambers online, and our algorithms continue to feed us what we've interacted with. And the more it affirms what we've already believed in, the more it feels true to us. And I think that's something that we really need to break out of, because it's not just media is no longer here's the fact here, here's the fact there, and let's come to our own conclusions ourselves. It's feeding us this narrative that reaffirms our vision. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have just been sucked into that, and it kind of makes them feel powerful and correct and right. And we all like to feel that. We like to feel validated. But if it's not the right version of the story, and if it's not right at all, then that's going to have some consequences later on.
yeah, I think that is a really good segue to some recent news that I've seen in the media about a TikTok deal that is potentially happening that the Trump presidency has announced, the Trump government. Yeah, so it's going to be this is where it's a bit unclear, and I think it hasn't all come out yet about what it's going to look like. But I mean, U.S. companies will have control over the algorithm. That's what is being said. And whether that is that just in the US? Is that going to be, are we going to be seeing different content in Europe? It's really unclear. But I think one interesting thing to note is that there's some pretty powerful people going to be on this board. Apparently, there's going to be the founder of Dell, founder of Oracle. Oracle's apparently going to be creating or having control over this new algorithm, which is interesting. And it's going to be a rewritten algorithm from what's already been there. This is all, alleged. They haven't actually
Right.
announced it yet. And also I think what is super interesting is that apparently there's rumors that Rupert Murdoch, the owner of News Corp and Fox News, is going to also be on the board, which I think is very interesting because it is kind of framing it to maybe look like more of a news organization, a news outlet compared to traditional media. Obviously, Rupert Murdoch has, a big empire. And so is it going to look different? Is it going to be more a focus on news? It's really interesting. I have no clue what it's going to look like, but it brings up a really interesting point.
Yeah, and I think to that point of even just controlling the algorithm, I think there's a lot of people that are online every day and scrolling through TikTok and scrolling through Instagram Reels and et cetera, and they don't really know why they're being fed what they're being fed or where that's coming from or who's controlling it. They just assume that like, I don't know, your phone's listening to you, or this, as soon as I say something, I swear it's everywhere on my. I think there's more of a there should be more of a deeper understanding of what we are consuming on our phones and where that's coming from and who's controlling it, because echo chambers are dangerous, and they're. I mean, I guess I understand it in a way of like wanting to be part of a community who has this and this and that. And yeah, sometimes I want to go online and find a bunch of different fall aesthetics that I'm looking for, and then hopefully my algorithm feeds me that. But when it comes to consuming news on TikTok, where all of that stuff is just so messy and a wild west, I do not want a bunch of people on a board controlling what I'm consuming if I don't trust them or if I don't know why they're feeding me that. Are they doing it for commercial gain? Are they doing it for social impact? What is it that's coming from that? And I think that's something that, I mean, we're interested in it, obviously, but I wonder how many people are actually thinking about how this algorithm is going to change on their TikTok and what that means for them.
Yeah, I mean, you make a really good point with now we don't know there's not really much
Oh.
discussion about who controls the algorithm. So maybe having this kind of transparency now, like we're aware of what companies are involved, what I guess also political affiliations, I think is very important. And so we're more conscious of this. I think it's a good start. We need to be asking more questions about this. We need to be holding these people in it to account.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, because I say everything's interesting, funny. When you sent me the news about TikTok and the algorithm and this whole news, it was Associated Press, right? We're not going to promote Associated Press. We should actually sponsor us. But it was very to the point. It was explaining this is what's happening. this is the deal
It
that
hasn't
everything
gone
is
through yet, I'm
or
saying.
yeah,
It's
so this
just
was
all
nothing proposed, and
discussion.
yeah, and so it was yeah, it was black and white. This is the fact. This is what's happening. That's the stuff that I like to consume, because then also when I looked it up later on, it was all these headlines and all this stuff on social media, like skewing the narrative and saying like, "Oh, this is going to happen. These people are going to control your algorithm. This is going to happen. This is that." Like, that's not the case. Like, it's just a discussion at this point, and so it is just really interesting. Now we can see it from this lens and watching it evolve in the way that we should be, instead of forming an invalid opinion based off of invalid facts. And I think when it comes to that consumer mindset as well, and doom scrolling and being chronically online, and just getting stuck in these algorithms and these echo chambers, and the talk I was at yesterday evening, obviously the title was misinformation and fake news, but it was a lot more on the side of, I guess, AI and regulation, which is really important, and how we need to start educating consumers and like putting more content in front of them that's factual and helps them debunk this misinformation. But one thing that I just couldn't stop thinking about was obviously what Haley and I are trying to do is, it's like, in a way, it's like fighting fire with fire. If we have so much misinformation online, why are we just teaching people how to navigate that misinformation, right? Like, we need more people sharing and being ethical and moral and giving their values of factual storytelling online to cut through that noise. Because us just knowing how to detect misinformation is just one part of the story, one part of the equation, because misinformation will just continue to spread like wildfire online. And the only thing I think we can do is to make people obviously aware of it, but want them to share factual information, want them to create content that is going to make a change, want them to use their voice that is going to fight this fire with fire, because otherwise we're just gonna keep getting hit with it, and
Mm.
nobody's gonna want to be online anymore. And then all of a sudden, if the people online aren't like, if the people who want to share factual information and create change online aren't online anymore, then we're just going to leave that to a place of people that are spreading misinformation like wildfire. And actually, I don't think that that is a place I would ever want to be or see that happens. So it's just really interesting, because I think a lot of it is on just educating and getting people to be fact checkers and this and that. But it's just, what more can we do? How can we move that needle to where people want to create, people want to make a change, people want to use their voice, they want to debunk this information in public online and be like, sir, that is not the right story. And yeah, I don't know what that looks like, but that's what we're kind of getting at, is that there is another part to this equation that we are not touching on. And it also does tie into how the industry is changing as well, because then we started talking about, well, why would people be excited about journalism anymore? Why would they want to do the stuff that we've been doing for years? Because it's scary and the industry's changing and it doesn't pay well and people are getting laid off left and right, and AI is taking a lot of entry-level jobs. And so that was one of the things too, is that, if AI can now transcribe and do all these things that you do in those really early days of an internship or work experience, how are we going to build those skills and who's going to take up those skills? So let's just teach those skills to the people that aren't yet there, because that saves an industry, and it is moving quite crazily fast.
Yeah, you make a really, really good point about, there's just obviously such a massive increase of misinformation. Well, maybe I don't know if there is such a massive increase or if it's just always been really, but I think it's fair to say there is. But yeah, you're going to have like content. I do worry about this future where the content that we see is majority of misinformation compared to actual facts. And if we're just kind of continuing that cycle by, yes, we acknowledge that that's not the truth. We acknowledge that things are going to keep coming up. It's going to be a cycle unless we balance out the content with more content that's actually facts that are accurate.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, I mean, we are seeing in terms of a trend is, there are news organizations that are coming up with these like subdivisions of their brands all about fact checking and misinformation, and they're feeding that into their algorithms and it's doing just fine. But it only goes so far, because then again, these young people that are being left behind, they're not going on these news websites. They're not going to find, like, their algorithm isn't showing them a news website. And so it's kind of just like, we just need more people doing it. And it could It's interesting too because there's the rise of citizen journalism. There's the rise of these reporters online that are sharing all of this news and these facts and everything, and they don't really have anyone to report to or to be responsible for. But there are a good handful of people that have hitched it to Substack or hitched it to social media, and they're telling good stories and they're telling factual stories, and they're actually getting to it quite quicker than some of these news organizations are. And so I don't think we can stop people from being independent journalists anymore. It's
Mm.
going to be a massive trend with all these layoffs. It's like freelance and independence is literally the status quo now. So it's interesting, and I think the more we can do is just equip people with those skills young, because if people are going to do it, you might as well make sure that they do it ethically and right.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we were talking about this earlier. There is such a shift to kind of less mainstream forms of media. But also, I mean, I read recently that Substack, so the news, traditional news outlets, the readership is going down, but Substack has been rising, which I think is really interesting. And I'm seeing so many more journalists that I know go on there to start newsletters, and yeah, the content on there is quite good quality. But like you said, it is interesting because it's not tied to a news organization. You've got to trust the person themselves doing it, that it is accurate.
Yeah, and we can't stop people from sharing stuff online ever. And that's just the case of it. And I think there are a lot of young people they've only known social media. That's been their whole life. I'm just trying to think, if I was a 13-year-old and I was wanting to be a journalist someday. I mean, obviously I wanted to go to school and I wanted to get certified and do the whole shabam. But I just don't know what that looks like in 5-10 years time. Like, are people going to want to go pay for journalism school if journalism school doesn't change too, because they have to now adapt to this new world of AI and everything that's happening. And so it's just a really weird time for the industry. Like, I'm no one to be able to predict what the future looks like, but I just think that, we're focusing on how to try to fix it from within and what we can do in our careers and as journalists now. But I think we are really leaving another generation behind, because even last night, I didn't hear one thing mentioned about young people, about kids, about children. And I just thought that was really weird, because we are obviously, smart and intelligent enough to be able to think critically and, well, hopefully sometimes, depending on who you are, but to be able to see the change and understand it and know how to fix it. But that generation is living in it. They're living and breathing it. They've never seen a generation without it. And I think that is what's going to move the needle ultimately. And we need their help.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that young people, I mean, this is a general statement, but I do think they are relatively good at picking out misinformation, largely when it's obvious, when it's AI, when it's obvious. And they do call out the older generations.
That's interesting, because I asked Tom the other day, or it was actually a few weeks now, when we were doing all of this, and I was like, well, what's one thing that would make you interested in this when you were 14? And he was like, well, it's difficult because I definitely wasn't. Like, he was just playing games and like going off with his friends and doing whatever. But he's like, if there is one thing that like young boys and even young girls like to do, it's argue with their parents, and they like to be right. And I think that's one thing that's interesting too, is because this young generation, they are obviously chronically online, but they're also most vulnerable to views around them. And that tends to start in the household. That tends to start in the schools, and which is why we obviously want to do nonpartisan education in a way. But, those views are circulating around them at such a young age that they're vulnerable to be able to run with that. And so I'm just going to say it. If you're young and you're listening to this, argue with your parents. Don't argue in a way where it's obviously bad, but question the things they tell you, question the things your friends tell you. Don't just take it. Like, and it's fine if it's right too. Like, even if it's right, just question, learn how to challenge that. Because I mean, I grew up in a household as well where it was just everything around me was already just the view of the household. And I did fine. I always, not like in hindsight, I was always just a bit different, but I was always questioning it. But if you don't have that innate sense of critical thinking or awareness, it does start at home, and it does start in schools, and it just does start in your lifestyle. And I think it's just really important to be aware of that. And I don't even know who we're talking to right now. Are we talking to a 13-year-old, or are we talking to, but tell your siblings. That's the
Yeah,
case.
I think that's a really good point. It's about a little bit more independence in your own thoughts. And yeah, again, even if you're wrong, even if you're right, start questioning things.
But then also have a little bit of trust, because then, you go, it's so difficult to talk about it, because then
It
last
is, it's a
as well, it's
balance.
like,
Yeah,
you start not trusting anything online, and then now you cast doubt on these professionals and these
yeah,
journalists that are actually doing the right thing. But then, yeah, it's still, but media has changed, and the narrative in a lot of media organizations has changed. So yeah, just be independent, have your own thoughts, think it clearly, and yeah, don't get caught up in what all of your friends are saying. Because if I did that, I definitely would not be here today. I'd say, yeah, you know what I mean? But,
Yes.
just think for yourself.
Yeah, it is a fine balance though, because yeah, it's like you need to trust something, right? But you also need to question things. And
Mhm,
it's like we need to work out, how do we like put our trust in something?
mhm.
How do we know that that's actually like an accurate source? And it really is really messy right now.
But there's loads of tools out there like that right now, and we can drop some in the comments too, and we'll write about it on our Substack, so everybody follow us. But yeah, there is a lot out there, and just like misinformation, you can get a bit confused, you can get a bit lost. So you just have to know which ones that are, work best for you and where you think that you can get the appropriate information. It's just about taking the time to find it because we
Yeah.
all we all like short form content nowadays and just scrolling through our TikToks, but take 10 minutes and figure out what is going to help you stay informed. And I think it'll go a long way.
Yeah. And I think that's why, I mean, legacy media has lasted this long. It's because it's formed, a reputation of trust. And I still trust those news organizations. I still go to them. And that's where it is confusing when we're shifting to social media, where there isn't that developed reputation of channels of, people on there. So I think we need to give it some time, and hopefully that reputation will build of trust.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of people out there that are honestly just very feeling claustrophobic with all of the noise and all of the everything that's being thrown into their face every day. And so just take a second and think through things and find that calm in the storm because it's there. And I think I'm probably the least pessimistic person I know. So like even last night at the event, there was a lot of pessimism. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, fine, we can state the obvious, we can state the challenges, we can state how dangerous it is, but what can we do to fix it? Like that is that's the question we should be asking. We shouldn't just be naming off all of these scary facts and times and things and stories. You need to question why and how can we change that because that's the only way we're going to change something is to stop mulling over all of the sadness and the danger and just do something about it. And that's what Haley and I are trying to do. And we're only episode 2 into this, so we'll figure it out by the end of it. I know.
When's the end of it? When is the last episode?
There's no
Like
end.
50 years, yeah.
Everybody follow because it's in for a ride. But yeah, that's the fun of it though, is that we sit here and we yap until we find a solution. We think we have a solution for the time
Yeah.
being.
And that's what we're trying to, yap through, I guess.
Yeah. But it's gonna shift, it's gonna change, and just like everything that's around us. So
Hmm.
but I think it's fun. I think it's really important right now. Really, really important.
I have one question, and it's very important, and I've saved it for kind of towards the end of the podcast, is what was the chief mouser, Larry the cat? What was he like?
Guys, it was the highlight of my day. I don't want to say that, but like it literally was the highlight of my day. So I got to meet Larry the cat, and I wish I could just like share my screen right now. I probably could later
I
on
guess
in
for
that.
international audiences, that
Yeah.
is the resident cat that lives at 10 Downing Street,
Yeah.
where the Prime Minister lives, and he is beloved in the UK. He is a little mini celebrity. He is beloved by politicians and journalists alike, and it's a big deal when you meet him.
Yeah, he's a star. Because I walked in and I immediately saw him and I was like, yes. And you can tell like he's definitely just like chilling. That's his house. It's been his house for so long. And he was like sitting in front of the fireplace that wasn't lit. And he was like, guys, light my fire. I don't care why you're in my house right now. And so he left. But then he was inside when I came in. And then he was outside when we came out. And I watched him like run across the little road. Everybody started taking the photos. We took a group photo. We were all taking like the individual photos. And he comes up and he doesn't care about anybody being there at all. Like it's like nobody's there and he's just in his own little zone. But he came up and he just like sat at the door and stared at the door to like get let in. And I immediately was like, me next, stay there, Larry, because I needed a photo with him at the door. So I was like, nobody let him in, nobody let him in. And I was just hoping that there wasn't like a little cat sensor there where someone was going to let him in while we were all taking photos. So it was a perfect photo. If I can figure out how to edit it in to show you guys, I will. 10 out of 10 experience. Made it so much better. Even though it was
Yes.
great anyway.
I have also been to Downing Street before, and I was the same. I think I was there the day I saw like Justin Trudeau, but I was more interested in the cat. I'm like, this is what we should be filming.
Yeah.
And I guess like you see all the coverage of big news events in the UK when there's like a power change and everything, and they just always want to film Larry. He's just always there. He's just chilling. He doesn't care about what's going on. He notoriously cold shoulders a lot of the really world leaders, and it's very funny.
I pet his head, though. I'll just say that I was able to pet his head when I was at the door.
That's actually pretty impressive because he
Here,
doesn't
pal.
like people patting him.
Yeah, he didn't really care. I mean, it's not like he ran away, but he was just like, he missed.
Such a vibe.
But yeah, 10 out of experience. Haley is also going to a UNESCO event tomorrow. I actually don't know when we're going to come out with this podcast. So,
Yeah. Well, yes.
but next time she'll have loads to say about that as well.
Yeah, it's an event. It's actually aimed at parents, but it's an event about whether we should kind of censor what young kids are seeing online on social media. That's somewhat damaging, and that's kind of introducing these extremist views for kids, or should we educate them? And I think the answer is relatively easy. I don't think censorship works at all, really. We need to be educating kids about kind of their feelings, I guess, maybe talking more, because I think the event, they're going to show the Netflix show Adolescence, which I've seen, and it is amazing. And I think even since that show's come out, we've had a massive discussion about young boys getting radicalized online by some of these extremist views. And it comes down to the content they're consuming, and it's not just the content, it's the community they've created alongside that content. So it's going to be really interesting. Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm jealous. So please record it because I actually do want to. I actually can't. Even if I did the online event, I wouldn't be able to listen to it tomorrow. But anyway, it'll be cool. Haley and I are just out there grinding, hustling, and there's loads more to come. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, stay tuned. Thank you.